up. So thank you again for being here. Looking forward to delivering some good information. And we'll get going here shortly.
While people are joining, I appreciate, Andrew, you bringing us on and letting me have a chance to be in the limelight a little bit.
Yeah.
Glad to help out where we can.
Of course.
Is that a crocodile behind you?
Alligator head, yeah.
Alligator. Did you capture that? Like, you?
I did.
Is it real? Wow.
Yeah, he was alive once. All right, everybody. I got 2 past the hour here, so we'll go ahead and kick this off. So again, welcome to August. It's hard to believe we're already at this point in the year, but certainly been different times. But with everything that's going on, I think it's a valuable conversation and information for you guys to get. Would be one of which around Mimecast and their positioning in the market and what they're doing to provide the security to your customers. So. With that, we're certainly happy to have Travis Larson, as well as Alex Stevens and John Hager with Mimecast here to join us. Again, for those of you guys that don't know me, I'm Andrew Lauder, the Director of Sales for the East for RapidScale. I've been here about 7 years now, actually 7 years in August. So it's been a little while, but certainly excited to see where everything's going to go here. Again, thank you guys for joining, and looking forward to giving some good information here. So per the usual, this is going to be recorded, and we're going to be sending this link out to everybody upon completion. If you guys have some questions that you have that come up, you can go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll make sure that we carve out some time at the end of the webinar to review all those with you. So for you guys that are not familiar with the Mimecast and RapidScale relationship, so from email protection, archiving, DLP, continuity, perspective from a RapidScale solution, we use Mimecast. Mimecast is hands down a leader in the space, and we are the #1 MSP within North America. So what that means is that we are using the way that we are reselling Mimecast is that all the support, implementation, everything goes through us, as is consistent with everything else that we do. Again, obviously leader in the space. We're certainly happy to have Travis here and his team to help provide us with some information, bring some clarity, and just talk about the space. I mean, I think this is one of those, I wouldn't, for lack of a better term, commodity type service, but it's so important now because it's literally one of the single biggest points of failure within a business, and where they're getting breached and becoming compromise their data and things of that nature. So we're certainly happy to have them here. Thank you again, Travis, for the time. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and we'll get rolling.
Awesome, Andrew. Appreciate that. When you say it's one of the biggest breaches, we would say attack vector. We actually have some numbers around that. So 94% of organizations have experienced a phishing attack in the last 12 months. We're going to talk a lot about what we're seeing right now and the trends, and I'm going to give some examples of what these attacks look like. But I wanted to take a moment to realize that this isn't a new thing. Attacks are constantly happening, but we're going to see here in a little bit how they're changing and then the impact they're having. I did the math, 279 days, that sounds like a lot, but when we break that up on the calendar, 9 months out of the year is how long a company will be weighted down by a breach. So the breach happens January 1st, it's going to be late September before they can close that off and say they've completely dealt with the breach. And I think that's really powerful when we're talking about we're positioning and addressing our customers. We're trying to improve their overall experience by selling them solutions or technologies. If they're wading through a breach for 9 months, that's slowing down their purchasing cycle, their sales cycle. The average breach we can see is almost $4 million. This is a ripple effect. A breach just doesn't affect a company or a business. It's all of their partners, it's all of their relationships. it's everyone that they work with, because they're now spending absorbent amount of time and resource trying to fix something that probably could have been prevented. And when we say about, well, what is a breach, or where does a breach happen? Over 90% of most breaches are because of human error. Someone has clicked on something, someone has gone to a website they shouldn't have visited, they entered credentials. We'd like to think that technology, there's some kind of super code out there that's causing the problems. It's not. It is simply people making poor choices, usually due to lack of education. So we're going to talk a lot about education and awareness training throughout this presentation. I also wanted to show this real quick. I know that RapidScale in particular is not mapped to employee count size. Their business, you might have customers that are 25,000 employees and above. Maybe you have them that are 500. The illustration here is that every company, regardless of size, when they suffer a breach, it has a very tangible cost associated to it. These are in millions of dollars. So a smaller company, 500 to 1,000 in size, could easily be losing $2.5 million because of a breach. And again, that impacts.
Just to add to this, I mean, we talk a lot about compelling events and business impacts. I mean, this is the business impacts. I mean, if there's a monetary number that we can tie to it to look at it. So, I mean, this brings credibility when you guys are out having these conversations and just recognizing where, how you can potentially help them.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Andrew. Brilliant. So when we talk about what we're seeing, if you guys haven't heard, there's a little thing going on. It's generically called COVID. Maybe it's come up. We started at Mimecast doing some threat intelligence. So when the pandemic first hit, we began tracking every event that we saw from a security point of view to build a landscape of activity. And so I'm going to share with you, and I also want to say, whenever you're presenting slides to audiences, specifically over Zoom or WebEx, what you don't want is a slide with a lot of words. So here's a slide with a lot of words. Forgive me for that. But what we can highlight is the 33% and the 55%. So as we began tracking, when COVID first really kind of hit and took off, we began watching what malicious actors or bad actors were doing. And, for a lot of legitimate businesses, what we saw happen was they became downsized. They had to do furloughs. They had to let people go or just minimize hours. That's not what bad actors did. The threat community ramped up. They went into overtime. And they went into overtime because they realized companies were going to be very vulnerable from a work perspective. They wouldn't have everybody available to do the work that needed to be done for security. They wouldn't be able to do all the education. There were new routines being created by having individuals work remotely. And that actually leads us into the other number, 55%. I'm sure many of us are working from our home offices today, and that kind of puts us in an echo chamber. We're only hearing our own feedback as we're going through our day-to-day tasks. And what I mean by that is, we all want to know more about COVID. We all want to learn and how to be safe, how do we defend against it, what should we be doing for loved ones. So we are more prone to clicking on COVID-related content in an effort to become more educated. And there's no one sitting next to us like we used to have in the office to say, hey, what do you think about this link? Should I pursue it? It's do or die. We either click it or we don't. And out of curiosity, out of emotion, out of just wanting to be better, we're seeing a significant increase in good employees making poor decisions. So again, it kind of goes back to that user error issue. Now, what do the attacks look like? And I just have a couple here. We're not going to go through too many, but let me kick over to an actual email. As we can see here, it's fairly simple. It's obviously about COVID. Savvy users might look at the domain and maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. But what typically happens is people just want to click on it. And so this is something that, I want to learn more. It's playing off fear and emotions. Let me go back to that real quick. It's playing off fear and emotions. Make sure you are prepared. Help fight. Find out more. It's call to actions. We're salespeople most of the time. We want to have call to actions. Bad actors know this and they're no different. They're doing the same kind of techniques that we would expect, result-driven behavior. So when they click on it, I have Mimecast in the environment. Actually, RapidScale has Mimecast. And what we see is a challenge page. And I'm just kind of curious, Andrew, has this ever popped up for you during your day-to-day activities?
I haven't seen this, but I mean, our our filtering is pretty strong too, right? So a lot of
Mhm.
stuff gets put in the quarantine, but I've not personally seen this.
Yeah. Well, and the reason, which is great, there's two reasons for that. This is a dynamic page. This shows up, the more times you click in correctly, the more often you'll see it. I see it on every single click because I'm a horrible actor. No, it's because I'm paid to demo it, so I have to click on it. Your behavior being probably more reasonable and acceptable, you're not seeing it because you don't need to see it. And so that's something that I think is really important. Fatigue of any kind becomes a real thing when end users want to start ignoring things. When this flashes up, they just automatically hit it's harmful and then they go away from it. So if we showed this on every single click, they would do whatever shortcut they could to get away from it. We only show it as it's needed. And I think that's really important. I'm going to assume it's safe, of course, and then we get this challenge page. Core to Mimecast, without any additional purchase, this is what we refer to as our inline awareness training to help educate users, really slow them down, let them think about what they just clicked on. And then if they decide to click on it and it's not safe, we're going to protect them. If they decide not to click on it, we're going to congratulate them. And Andrew, I really appreciate what you said. Mimecast takes the approach of really rejecting as much of this content before it gets into the environment as possible. And I was just reading one of our articles. We have rejected, it was 98 million emails this last quarter of just known garbage, just keeping the pipe clean from anybody dealing with it. The other email, so that was a URL type of attack, definitely aimed at COVID conscious people. Here's another one. Again, it's another COVID. It's very simple. It's just saying, hey, these little measures can help save you. Who the organization, not the great band, right? But the organization is saying who is working closely with global experts, and they're trying to get you to read more. Now, this one's different because there's no link in the email body. It's in an attachment. I clicked on it, and the idea is that there are a lot of security technologies that do not provide as adequate filtering and scanning for attachments as for the rest of the email. So this is a way bad actors are trying to circumvent getting malicious URLs into the environment. Again, I'm running Mimecast, and I happen to have the advantage that we have done what's called a safe file conversion, where we have disabled or disarmed the URL. I am not able to click on this link. It could have been a macro. It could have been a piece of code intended to compromise my machine. It's still disabled. This flat file or benign file allows me to see the content, and really looking at it, it's pretty generic. I would not be impressed if I saw this in the real world, despite the buildup of the email. But if I was to click that link, it would take me to a site that would do a drive-by download, some kind of malicious payload. Maybe it would be credential harvesting, trying to get me to enter in my login information. None of that is available to me as the end user. I could get the original copy if needed. That's available, but the idea is let's just disable right from the start any potential threat. If I was a remote employee, which I am, and I saw this and I felt compelled to click on it, I've just been protected because it's no longer a functioning link. And that's something that we're trying to do preemptively, but we should be talking to our partners, our customers about, asking them what are they doing for educating their end users so that they're not just clicking on random links. Most things that we can see here coming from the WHO community or the WHO committee, it is not a legitimate site. I can clearly look at this domain, and if I searched it online, it would be a dud. Just telling our employees and educating them about taking 2 seconds to evaluate, it goes a long ways. One of the facts I just found this morning, so I didn't get it in the slide deck, Mimecast runs our mail security platform, and then we also have awareness training. It is 5 times more effective when the two are ran together, preventing breaches from happening, because we're able to coincide what both the security aspect of it and the education and awareness. And that pairing of both technologies is really the success of any good security posture. Should be back into the presentation now. We're just going to look at recommendations. So we kind of talked about this. I think from an organization point of view, you should be talking to your customers about what they are doing for things like email protection, but it goes beyond that, focusing on that awareness training. How are they actually educating their employees and their end users to ensure that they're stopping to think about the choices they're making? Another aspect is web security. And we think about web security like, oh, browsing the internet. If you're on your work machine, you might assume you're protected. So you open up your VPN that takes you back to your business account, your business infrastructure, and you're behind all their firewalls. I'm sure none of us on the line have ever disconnected VPN and immediately gone to Reddit or Facebook or Instagram, right? This is a common concern that businesses have, where work machines are being used for personal activities, most of which are not bad. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with Reddit or Facebook, but how do we know that those URLs are being secured and protected against? And web security via DNS filtering is a different way to take it because it's not dependent on traditional corporate firewalls. So this is one of the things that we want to start talking to our customers about, expanding the security offering beyond just email or VPNs, and having a serious conversation of, when Travis goes to Starbucks or wherever, social distancing, sits down, joins the public Wi-Fi and is not on VPN, still working, but what is my level of protection? And a basic firewall is not going to catch a lot of modern threats that are web-based. So we need to look at that a little different. And then I talked about safe file conversion. One of the easiest, best ways to disarm a threat is by converting any kind of attachment to a benign document. Now, the right side for remote workers, I'm not going to go a lot on this. The summary is awareness training. Teach them about passwords, teach them about safe browsing habits, teach them about secure networks. But this is something that needs to be actively done from a customer's point of view. Now, when we discuss that, I actually wanted to open up. I've worked for resellers before, and I've had vendors come in and tell me about how great their product is and why I should sell it. Sometimes there was a gap on, though, how to lead into that conversation. I'm sure you're all professional salespeople. This is just a guideline or a suggestion. But what I found talking to my own customers is, when I ask them, what are you guys doing for awareness training? It's kind of a hodgepodge. A lot of the time it's reluctancy when they answer. It's a very uncertain response. Oh yeah, well, we have a solution out there, and there's a lot of good awareness training solutions. Mimecast has a great one, but there are others. But the customers don't always know how effective it is. And I think that second question is one of the best ones you can ask. How effective? How effective do you feel it's working? More often than not, that's where I hear the hitch in their voice, where they're like, yeah. No, it's good. It's good. It's not good. They don't know. And I think having an ability to show a company not only how well their employees are answering questions or going through the security training, but to be able to directly compare that to other businesses in the same vertical, that becomes more of a compelling, powerful story. Hey, you are well below the average in security posturing for a lot of these trainings. Did you know that? This is something tangible that can be tracked and provided through Mimecast awareness training. And it's not to beat them up on it. Oh, go ahead, Andrew. Yeah.
Travis, real quick, how does that play into compliance for some organizations and be able to provide that data and what they're doing proactively?
Yeah. So when you turn that conversation from, let me back up. One of the biggest challenges with compliance absolutely is, are you checking the boxes? Do you have an awareness training? So if you're living by the letter of the law, yes, we have awareness training. Okay, you're compliant. The trap to that is, okay, we did the training, but we still had a breach. And why did we have that breach? When you're trying to meet compliance, not by the letter of the law, but the actual intent of the law, it changes the dynamic where you can say, yes, we have awareness training, and we see we have a gap. We're not as compliant as we thought we should be, because other industries have a better security posture than we do. So it helps change the conversation where they not only do the training, but they take it serious enough to overhaul the whole program. And we've seen customers come back a year later and say, yes, we passed our compliance requirements, and also we've risen to the top of the list. We are not the most most vulnerable company out there. Anything to meet compliance is good, but to actually execute on compliance, I think is the challenge. Good question. Now, these answers and questions are kind of from that position of assuming the customer is not confident in their answers to their awareness training. So I kind of wanted to throw up, wait a minute, what if they're actually really happy with it? I'm here to help position and sell a great solution called Mimecast. There are other technologies out there we want to be mindful of. There's also other services. So even if they are really content with their current platform, I've seen customers take a quote or a bid or a demo when we've compared it saying, hey, we'll give you a pricing and feature parity comparison if you would find that valuable. A CISO, if all things considered equal, the product would be less expensive, they'll jump ship. And I don't want to say that to like try to disrupt anything. The practical side is we all need to be very fiscally responsible, and just offering to get a comparative quote and feature set will open doors to larger conversations. You're not trying to hound them, you're just providing them an alternative. The other thing that I find kind of powerful is when a service-driven organization is able to actually validate, doing pen tests, doing security assessments of the environment, just to ensure that they're meeting the compliance they need, they're meeting the level of protection that they are thinking they're getting with their current solution. And this is outside of Mimecast. This is something that you can offer with your own solution that may lead into a Mimecast sell or other services as a sell. And again, disclaimer, you guys are all professional, use your own lingo. These are just guidelines or suggestions. We're going to be following up, sending out the first 100 days of COVID. It's the threat intelligence report that we use as a baseline to understand the behavior. We'll provide that to you guys. That's something you could send to your customers for, starting the conversation around this, and then you could lead into these questions potentially. I think with that, we're doing pretty good on time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what Mimecast is. I will highlight that as an email security company, we're also archiving. We have continuity. We do all sorts of good things for our customers like awareness training, and we can really provide some improvements to the overall security posturing. Like I mentioned, 5% increase when you combine awareness training and email security. And we're very strategic in our acquisitions. One was just announced with AI and learning behavior. And I think I just want to highlight it. We're not going to go into a technical, but think about a user that has never sent a bulk email to 1,000 people in 5 years. Why are they now sending a bulk email to 1,000 users? So looking at that behavior, the technology we just acquired, when we integrate it, we'll see that as an oddity or a red flag and be able to take action on it. It's being smarter about what our day-to-day activities look like for our customers and protecting them from the oddities that don't fit their day-to-day activity. So that's just things down the pipeline. I think with that, we can kind of open it up to questions. So,
and I'll make one quick comment, and then we'll open up for some questions. So, one of the things that I always like to do was, when I was, on the channel manager side is, I would go in before we had any type of prospect meeting, I would go and do an MX record lookup to try to see where their MX records were pointed. So this is a free tool for anybody. You can go, if you just Google MX record lookup, and you can essentially type in the domain of the customer, and it shows you where, the IP of where the MX records are being pointed to. So if they were to have a physical device on site, you could see that and what it was. So it's just good information for you to be able to walk into and be prepared, or potentially see some type of gap or weakness that they have. If you recognize an inferior solution, filtering solution, anti-spam, antivirus solution, then you can go in there and position Mimecast, make sure you're talking about it.
Yep. And just showing to Andrew's point, yeah, there's the MX toolbox. This is the one that typically I and a lot of the SEs I work with use. It does a lot of neat things. I don't want to bog you down with boring techno mumbo jumbo, but there's several things that we could gather out of this list. But just doing the basic MX lookup, we see where that's pointing. Mimecast is also a mail transfer agent, so we can send and receive email. And that's why we show up a little more than you might see with your customer. But all of the information should be there. All right. Anything else, sir?
Summer.
Yes, we actually have quite a few questions. So first, when a work-at-home worker clicks on malicious links and becomes compromised, what effect does that have on the corporate network?
Yeah, so to answer that question, technically, if they are connected to the VPN, it's no different than as if they were sitting inside the corporate environment and became infected. We talk about east-west traffic, and that is from internal users spreading and sharing. Think of it if, and I'm not going to use COVID, I get the flu, I come home, and then I get my wife sick. That's east-west traffic, right? We're in the same household, we're in the same building. And through a VPN, you're essentially sitting next to each other, your coworkers virtually. So if you're behind the firewall, the chances you're connected to the VPN, the chances of becoming infected are lower. So that's good. But again, once you disconnect the VPN and that machine becomes compromised, think about it like you just got the flu and now you've walked into the building, you walked into your office where all your coworkers are, and you start sneezing everywhere. That's what can happen when your endpoint becomes infected and then you join in or come into the VPN for the corporate network. So we really want to be protecting against that potential scenario.
All right. Next up, for awareness training, what verticals specifically require this and what happens if they are not in compliance? Healthcare and PCI compliance, are there others? Where are you seeing this sold the most?
So there's a reason why I'm a Mimecast SE and not a compliance SE. Compliance and regulation can be very varied, which is part of the issue. There is no one standard. Most compliance verbiage says, in order to be a compliant, you have to achieve X number of things. So awareness training being an example of that. Yes, you have to have awareness training. It doesn't say what the awareness training has to be on. It doesn't say the duration of the awareness training. It doesn't even say how effective it is or how successful it's measured. It just says you need to have awareness training. And I think it's our responsibility to help educate our customers and the businesses that they're in. A checkbox is not compliant. It says it's compliant on paper, but it's not true compliance. It's the letter versus the spirit, right? So to answer your question, we are seeing a lot of traction with compliance and awareness training in any HIPAA related, any medical fields, anywhere where personal data might be exposed. That is probably the number one interest, at least for us, that we're seeing come to us asking for awareness training. After that, government agencies, anything of state and local, there's a lot of concerns about proper awareness training when it comes to government related entities. So I'd say focus on those two, but every business, honestly, truthfully, every business is probably undervalued on their awareness training. They do not have enough. If they have any, that's good. But I've seen enterprises of 20,000 employees and above sorely missing it, and I've seen companies as small as just a few hundred people missing it. So it's a hard question to answer. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and to add real quick onto the compliance conversation, there are other additional add-ons that we have within Mimecast and Mimecast offers, such as like their healthcare pack, that can also continue to enable the compliancy, right, and meeting those standards and regulations that those companies have to adhere to. Yeah,
that's a good point. Awareness training is one part of compliance, but having the HIPAA pack is really critical because it's anything medical and it's credit card or PPI type information. So yeah, that simplifies compliance requirements for businesses for sure.
And we keep having questions come in, so we might go a few minutes over if people do want to stay on. So also for companies using Office 365, do they have a need for Mimecast?
Yeah, so that's an important question. You know, a lot of times customers kind of fall into the lull of, well, Microsoft does a one-stop shopping. I've used this analogy before where maybe you think of Microsoft as a Target, right? Like I'm going to go to Target, I'm going to get some groceries, maybe some wine, I don't know, just pleasant little evening. I need to get a shirt, and I'm going to maybe get a piece of furniture. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's all kind of available there. However, my plan is to go to a wedding and I'm the groom. Am I going to go to Target for the tuxedo? Maybe, but most likely what I really need is something special that is unique and sold by a very specific vendor. And I think that's kind of where we complement Office 365 so well, is that we really are tailored to a security experience. I'll make the joke, security is like an onion. At the end of the day, it makes you cry. No, it's like if you've ever had security fail on you, you know what I'm talking about. No, you have to have as many layers. And an example of this, we run what's called an email security risk assessment, an ESRA, And it's a form of a POC that customers can put in their environment, and we're looking at journaled content. So it's all post-processed data. We're seeing a new attack rise in the industry of email attachments that are voice messages. And I say this like, think about receiving an email that says you have a new voicemail, click it to play, and instead you get redirected to a website that is malicious. Maybe it's a payload, some kind of download, maybe it's a URL, maybe it's credential harvesting. In this Ezra of a customer only running 365, we saw this attack come up several times. In fact, we've seen it across several customers only running O365. And I'm not saying this to pick on them. I'm just saying this was part of a security, kind of a newer attack vector that they just weren't prepared for, that Mimecast actually caught with our Maverick engine, our AV engine, and blocked right from the get-go, 0-day protection. So we're really layering our security and augmenting O365 to help fill in that security risk. Good question.
It's better than the inherent advanced threat protection that Office 365 offers.
Yeah. I've had customers, I don't want to dog on them. I mean, we wouldn't be in business without Microsoft. It is truly a partnership. I have had customers who have ran O365's version, then come to ours. And even from a simplistic approach, how to use the product, how effective it is, and how much less time they spend managing it, they don't go back. They're very happy with our offering.
Yeah, whenever we're offering a 365 solution, we're building in, recommending some form or fashion Mimecast with every single one that we do. We can of course do the advanced threat protection with it, but we see as Mimecast as being superior. Plus, they've got a lot of other services that we can bolt onto it to help out.
Yep. Awesome.
And I'll wrap up with this final question, but I have the others written down, so we will send them out in the follow-up email. But talk about the business relationship between RapidScale and Mimecast. How are the services priced, licensed, contracted? Who's responsible for what?
I'll take that. So the way that it works, so we're an MSP with Mimecast. So we essentially have a direct agreement with Mimecast, and everything that we sell, we're billing it, we're supporting it, we're implementing it, the whole 9 yards. So the customer will not ever really interface with Mimecast. They're going to be interfacing with us. So from a price point, I mean, we like to think it's a pretty good price point. I mean, we are the largest MSP with them, so that does provide us with some buying power, obviously. But really, I mean, that's for us, it's about the experience with the customer. It's us bringing the expertise in, and just having that other service that we're managing on top of the other solutions that we're providing to the customer.
And I will say, while I do trainings for partners, my full-time job is being an SE in territory. I'm located in Arizona. RapidScale provided an amazing service for us. We had a customer that had a breach, and over the course of a weekend, it was RapidScale that got Mimecast implemented, deployed, and configured within their environment in a time that was faster than we do very quick at Mimecast. We can roll that out, but it was RapidScale's effectiveness in deploying the product that helped win the deal. The fact that the customer could have protection almost the next day, I'll say 2 days later, that really closed and made the opportunity happen. So I benefited from that personally because that was in my territory. So I'm really grateful for RapidScale and the ability to deliver on it.
Awesome. Then for the sake of time, we'll wrap it up there.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Obviously, Travis, great information. Hopefully everybody was able to take something away from this. If you guys have questions, be sure to reach out to your local CSC and we'll jump in and help you. I know Summer's got additional questions. We'll put some answers together for those and get them out. Obviously, we're going to send out some data and some follow-up, including the deck from here. But again, thank you guys for the time. Hope this was very informative. It's certainly a very important topic to be aware of and to be talking about, educating your customers on. So, hope we're able to help on that piece. But other than that, everybody have a great day. Hopefully see you guys soon, and let us know if there's anything we can help out with. Thanks again for joining.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care, everyone.